There's this mass influx of Americans and Canadians looking to actually make investments outside of the US, and specifically in areas like Europe and in Spain specifically. Unfortunately, US banks actually are known for offering the worst rates of exchange. So you're really not getting the correct bang for your buck if you are utilizing a bank to make this transaction.
So Kelly, thank you so much for taking your time today to start to talk with us about like a really important subject, I think, for a lot of people who move to Spain and want to buy property here, especially people from countries where the currency is different, such as the US and Canada, of course. Now you work for Moneycorp, right? Like one of I think the largest currency exchange companies in the world. Am I right?
That's correct. Thank you so much for having me today.
Of course, yes. Can you tell a little bit about yourself and like what you do on a daily basis and the type of clients you work with?
I'd be happy to. So again, my name's Kelly Cutchin, and I'm actually the country manager for Moneycorp here in the United States. I've personally been with the company for about 17 years now. We're a UK-based company, but we have offices around the world in strategic locations whereby we know we have an influx of customers who are needing to make international payments. A bit about myself. Within those 17 years, I've had the opportunity of experiencing a lot of change, right? So back in the early 2000s, it was a lot of British clients, as an example, buying real estate out here in Florida. And over the course of the last several years, we've really witnessed a dramatic change whereby there's this mass influx of Americans and Canadians looking to actually make investments outside of the US, and specifically in areas like Europe and in Spain specifically. So that's a bit about myself, but Moneycorp is the leading non-bank provider of foreign exchange and international payments. And we work with both private individuals as well as corporations. So we're extremely grateful to work with a wide network of real estate partners around the globe who are introducing customers to Moneycorp so that they can experience the benefits of our services.
Okay. Yeah. So, as we mentioned before, we already had an interview with your colleague, Kevin, who is active locally here for Moneycorp as well. And we kind of touched on, currency exchange for UK nationals from Scandinavian countries or people from Switzerland. But yeah, you kind of touched on it as well already. We see quite a big increase of like Americans and Canadians moving to Europe in general, but especially to Spain and the Costa Blanca area. And I think it's just so good to have you on here because of that reason, because I mean, you're located in the US, and it's really funny how you say that. Usually you dealt with clients the other way around, and right now it's Americans going to Europe. So I think that's really good to see that happen also from your side.
And there's probably, hundreds of reasons, right? Everyone has their own reasons as to why they're making that move or that investment. But some of the common threads that we've heard are things like, I can sell my property here in California for so much right now. I can get much more bang for my buck if I look to invest somewhere in the Eurozone. There's a lot of people that are just not settled with the current political climate here in the US, right? Certain laws have really struck a chord with Americans that think this isn't exactly where I'm hopeful to raise my family now or look to live long term. There's obviously some retirement benefits in some European countries. And then, of course, we have the exchange rate that's really become favorable for people investing into the Eurozone over the course of the last couple of years, right? And I hate to keep using this excuse, but of course, we all experienced COVID and we all experienced what working from home looks like. And whether I'm working from home in Nebraska or I'm working from home, in Spain, I can get the same work accomplished. So I think everyone sort of realized, I think I want to live somewhere where I can experience outdoor living and a different lifestyle, which Spain perhaps offers that they weren't necessarily getting here in the US. So there was some good that came out of COVID.
Yeah.
I guess you could look at it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely changed the world, and it's actually really, really good that you're bringing this up because, us as estate agents, we also noticed after COVID, actually, we expected things to slow down. I mean, really, nobody really knew what was going to happen, of course. But we've seen the opposite happening as well, because people started to understand, like, hey, I don't have to be in in Northern Europe where it's always raining and gray and everything. I don't have to be there. If I can just work remotely from Spain where it's sunny and it's a better climate and prices are just generally, a bit better. So I think it's really good to see that that's really like a global thing almost, where people started to realize that, and it really changed our lifestyle, I think, completely. It's like, yeah. And when it comes to, I mean, we'll go back to currency exchange, of course, because we're a bit off topic here, which is fine. So yeah, I mean, there's of course a lot of people, like you're saying, who are thinking about moving to Europe or to Spain, and let's keep it on Spain for now. And they will get to a point where they probably found a property and they would like to make the payment for the purchase of the property. What would you say is like the biggest benefit of working with a company like yourself, like a currency exchange company, over the traditional banking system where you just transfer money from your bank in the US or in Canada to Spain?
I think that brings up a good point. Most Americans to this day, if you ask them how they would go about making an international transfer, they would think immediately, I'll just contact my bank. My bank helps me with my checking savings account and any other transactions domestically. Why would they not be able to help me with my international transfers? And actually, they can. But it's important for you to realize that there's other options available, right? Don't let the banks capitalize on the fact that they believe you don't know any better. So there's something known as the interbank rate of exchange. And I'll get kind of elementary here for a moment, but I think it could be really useful to go through this. The interbank rate of exchange is the exchange rate that big banks are buying and selling millions of dollars of currency at any moment in time. But that's not the rate, Romy, that you would get, I would get, or any of these clients would actually be able to obtain. What effectively happens is that the client contacts their bank and the bank sells them the currency at a markup or a margin. Unfortunately, US banks actually are known for offering the worst rates of exchange. So they take the highest margins. Canadian banks are a little nicer, I will say, and European banks are even a little nicer than American banks. But at the end of the day, the banks are taking margins anywhere from 2.5 up to, in some instances, 8%. So you're really not getting the correct bang for your buck if you are utilizing a bank to make this transaction. When you utilize Moneycorp, we're able to get that interbank rate of exchange ourselves. And the reason being is that Moneycorp, even last year, did approximately $51.9 billion in foreign currency transactions. So we can get that phenomenal rate of exchange and then roll that exchange rate onto our clients. So Moneycorp typically works off of a margin of less than 1%. So we're going to get you the actual rate of exchange when it comes to doing those transfers. I have a couple numbers here I'll throw out because it might just really help people understand what this means. So I took an example of a property in Spain that's going to cost 300,000 euros. And if someone utilized their bank at this moment in time, that property would cost you approximately 342,000 US dollars, right? That's because the bank's rate of exchange is going to have that margin built in. With Moneycorp, that same 300,000 euro property is going to cost you $333,000. So that's a savings benefit, a cost savings benefit to you as a buyer of $9,000. So again, I thought it would just be useful to go through some of those numbers because it's important for you not to just say, well, the bank, it might be a little bit more expensive, but that's okay. I've worked with my bank for ages. This is substantial money that you're leaving on the table. This is your closing costs. This is your furniture package. This is your flights to and from Spain. So again, it's important to shop around. The banks are definitely not the expert when it comes to doing international transfers and offering those competitive rates of exchange.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, that's a big difference, to be honest, and especially when you're at the point of moving to another country, like literally everything helps, isn't it? So yeah, I think it's just a no-brainer really for people to at least, look at that option and see what the possibilities are, and then make a decision based on that. So imagine if somebody is right now at the point of, they decided that they might want to move to Spain. They want to start looking for properties around here. Where would they start? Because they might, have heard about currency exchange. As an example, as a estate agent, one of our first questions is, to clients is what's your budget? Because of course, if we don't know a budget, we can send them thousands of properties, but 90% might not be in that range of what they're looking for. When would you advise people to start, reaching out to you to see what they can actually get for their money?
I think you said the key word there. If you are someone who might be looking to consider buying a property internationally, now is the time to set up an account with Moneycorp.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason being is there's a lot of benefits that you can start enjoying now. Some people might be in the active stages of looking. Some people may have already purchased a property, or some people might still be in the dreaming stage. Wherever you are, I would say, take a minute to set up an account with Moneycorp. The good news is there's no cost or obligation to set up an account with Moneycorp, and it takes a matter of 5 minutes to get from start to finish. What effectively happens, though, is at that moment in time, we're going to introduce you to a personal currency exchange dealer. Your currency dealer at Moneycorp is located within your time zone. They're available to answer just general questions, right? You can get expert guidance from them. You can get an exact quote. What's the exact rate of exchange that I can get today? So that you can compare that with the bank and really see what benefit we can get you when it comes the time. But the other thing we can start doing is we can start monitoring the exchange rate on your behalf, right? We can tell you the rate of exchange today, and you can say, "Ooh, I was hopeful that I could get a rate of 2 cents better than that rate." Well, then you go on and sleep better at night, knowing that Moneycorp's watching the market on your behalf. And if we begin to be able to purchase the euros at that rate that you've specified, your target dream rate, we're going to make sure to make you aware. It's important to know as well, just one final point, that we have the ability to lock into an exchange rate for up to 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So let's consider the people that were looking back in November of last year when the rate was 1-to-1, who went, I know I'm not going to actually find a property until the summer of next year, where now we're at a rate of 1.09 today, right? A 9-cent difference is a big difference. But know that Moneycorp can lock into a rate for up to 2 years. That way you're not impacted of a negative exchange rate fluctuation. In the grand scheme of things, 1.09 historically is still a phenomenal rate of exchange between the dollar and euro, but we can monitor it for you, even if you're in the early days, or we can lock into that rate for you, which I think is really key if you know at some point in the future you will be buying a property in Spain.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really good advice, because I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there who don't, I mean, they're thinking about moving to Spain. I mean, the last thing they're thinking about at that moment is currency exchange. It usually comes a bit later, once they already found a property, they fell in love with it, and everything has to happen so quickly, and you just have to deal with the exchange rate that is at that moment. And yeah, no, so that's, I think, really good and useful information for people to really start thinking about that in the early stage, really.
Exactly. The one thing that is true is that the exchange rate is going to continue to fluctuate inevitably, right? And forever. It is going to go up and down, not only by the year, the month, the week, but even within the day, the exchange rate is going to fluctuate. So if you are in the early stages and you want to figure out what your budget is, set up that account with Moneycorp. We'll at least tell you what a good range to kind of look in is based on the US dollars that you have available to spend overseas.
Okay. And that kind of leads me to the next question. Well, it doesn't really lead me to it, but my next question is more because we spoke about people from the UK, people from Switzerland, Scandinavian countries. I mean, in Spain, we're quite used to seeing clients from those type of countries. They've been coming here for years and years. We kind of know what they need, the things they have to look out for. But when it comes to the US and Canada, it's relatively new that we're dealing with people from over there. Are there any things you would say that are different from US and Canada nationals, or things they have to really take care of when they're moving to Europe, or at least when they're trying to transfer money to Europe, change it for the euro?
There's a few questions that I would say are important for US and Canadian customers to consider before they're leaving, right? And these are things sort of outside of the currency exchange part, but still relevant to the financial aspect. One of the things that United States and Canadian-based clients should consider is, let's say that they decide to travel to Spain this summer to look for a property, and you find them the property of their dreams, and they need to act somewhat quickly, right? They need to put down an initial deposit, a good faith deposit, so to speak. And that amount may be 10,000 euros. But if their bank has a limit of only $2,000 per day that they're allowed to transfer online, then it's going to take them several days to get that deposit to where it needs to go. So that's a question they need to check with their banks before they leave is, do I have a daily online limit? The other thing that's even more important in my opinion is there's something in the US specifically, and Canada really abides by this as well, but it's the United States Patriot Act, which basically states that you're unable to facilitate an international wire transfer without being physically present in your bank. So we really want to make sure that people don't go to Spain, relocate to Spain, and leave their funds in their American bank account, because when they go to make that phone call to do that international transfer in the weeks to come, they might actually find that they need to get on a plane, fly back, make an appointment, go into their branch. So we want to make sure to have those early on discussions so we can make sure that you've checked all of the boxes so there's no hidden unnecessary surprises when it comes to needing to access your funds once you are in Spain.
Yeah, okay. I think that's some really good advice as well. I mean, you've touched on so many subjects already right now, and it's like my last question comes. I really had prepared for you, like, your main advice, but I think you've given so many already. Would there be one advice you would like to give to people, like the main advice you could think of, like, please don't forget to do this or don't do that? Anything you can think of?
I think it's just, don't think that you need to know everything. In an international property purchase, you have to rely on a team of experts. No one knows everything about everything, right? You're going to have questions about tax implications. You're going to have questions about immigration status. Can I work? Can I bring my children? How long can I stay? What's the type of property? So just know that you certainly aren't expected to know all of this information. Rely on people like Romy to feed you resources that will be helpful to you throughout this transaction. And again, as I touched on earlier, reach out to us early on. We'd love to just help give you some guidance and make sure that you are getting the correct information early on in this process so that there's no surprises when you're ready to actually act on it. No question is too silly. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us no matter how early you are on this journey, or if you're actively buying a property or already own a property overseas, there's likely some tools or resources that we can assist you with.
Okay, and where can people contact you on?
Sure. So I'll give you two things. I'll give you my cell phone number, which is a US based cell phone number, which is +1 863 207 6616. And I'll also give you my email address, which is my first name dot last name @moneycorp.com. So that's Kelly, Kelly .Cutchin, CUTCHIN @moneycorp.com. Always available. And I thank you so much. I encourage anyone to pick up the phone or send me an email if you have any questions.
Perfect. I will make sure to put these details as well in the description so that if anybody wants to, have a look at it, that it's right there. Well, perfect. Well, Kelly, thank you so much. I think it was, I mean, I think I've said the word useful, but already 4 times in this interview, which really says something about the information you've given. It was really good. And I'm really hopeful that, you know, it's going to help a lot of people who are right now in the process, or at least get them going and, you know, like make them understand that it's never too early. Just reach out and get the process started and know what you're talking about, because I think that's really important. Know what you're talking about. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Romy. And it's so encouraging to know that there's agents like you in Spain that are considering these things that their international clients are going to need to go through. So thank you so much for allowing me to provide this information to you and your customers.